शिला प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिकराचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमती भक्ति सिद्धांत गोस्वामी महाराज की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 12, text 1. Narayanam namaskrityam naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswati vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of God and Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasprayesu abhadresu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavate uttam shloke bhaktir bhavati nashtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And love in service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. I'll just recite this alone. Krishna swadharmo pagate dharma jnani dibija saha Kalo nasta drisamesa esa puranarko dunodita. This Bhagavad Puran is as brilliant as the sun, and it has arisen just after the departure of Lord Krishna to his own abode. Accompanied by religion, knowledge, etc., persons who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of ignorance in the age of Kali shall get light from this Purana. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sonaka Ashwatamna Uvacha Ashwatamna Upasristena Brahma Shirshana Brahmastra Urutejasa Utaraya Hatha Garbha Isena Ajivita Puna. Sonaka Uvacha Ashwatamno Pasrastena Brahma Sisno Rutejasa Utaraya Hato Garbha Isena Jivita Puna. Sonaka Uvacha Aswatam no Pasrastena Brahma Sisno Rutejasa Utaraya Hato Garbha Isena Jivita Puna. Sonaka Uvacha Ashwatam no Pasrastena Brahma Sisno Rutejasa Utaraya Hato Garbha Isena Jivita Puna. Please recite. Sonaka Vacha Shratamo Pastrastena Brahma Shishno Rutejasa Uttaraya Togarbo Sonaka Vacha Shishno Rutejasa Sonaka Vacha. Vacha. Mo Pastrastana. Mataji's Sonaka Vacha. Atam. Sonaka. Sonaka Vacha. The sage Sonak said, Ashwatamna of Ashwatthama, the son of Drona, Upasritena, by release of Brahma Shirshana, the invincible weapon, Brahmastra, Urutejasa, by high temperature, Uttaraya, of Uttara, mother of Parikshit, Hatha, been spoiled, Garbha, womb, Isena, by the Supreme Lord, Ajivita, brought to life, Puna, again. Purport, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Yeah. The sage Sonaka said, the womb of Uttara, mother of Maharaj Parikshit, was spoiled by the dreadful and invincible Brahmastra weapon released by Ashwatthama. But Maharaj Parikshit was saved by the Supreme Lord. Please repeat. The sage Sonaka said, the womb of Uttara, mother of Maharaj Parikshit, was spoiled by the dreadful and invincible Brahmastra weapon released by Ashwatthama. But Maharaj Parikshit was saved by the Supreme Lord. Purport. The sages assembled in the forest of Naimisaranya inquired from Sutta Goswami about the birth of Maharaj Parikshit. But in the course of the narration, other topics like the release of the Brahmastra by the son of Drona, his punishment by Arjun, Queen Kunti Devi's prayers, the Pandavas' visit to the place where Bhishma Dev was lying, his prayers, and thereafter the Lord's departure for Dwarka were discussed. His arrival at Dwarka and residing with the 16,000 queens, etc., were narrated. The sages were absorbed in hearing such descriptions, but now they wanted to turn to the original topic, and thus the inquiry was made by Sonaka Rishi. So the subject of the release of the Brahmastra weapon by Ashwatthama is renewed. Om Jnanam Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmiltam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Gopal Krishna Goswami Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyati Pasadata Satarine. Before I start speaking today, I would like to seek the permission of senior devotees, including Maharaj, to be able to speak something on this subject matter. It's the beginning of a new chapter, and I would like to seek the permission and blessings of all the senior Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis to be able to speak something for the benefit of myself and all of us practicing in the footsteps of Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Now, as we know that by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and by the mercy of Guru, even a dumb man turns into an eloquent speaker. And he also enables the lame to cross over mountains. Without his shelter, the whole world is wandering in the ocean of ignorance. So whatever I'll speak is because of the mercy of Guru, Kripa Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. So, for the new devotees, it is very important to understand that the Srimad Bhagavatam is spoken by two different personalities and there's two different audiences. So in this case, as we can say, Sonaka Vacha means the great Rishi Sonaka in the forest of Naimisaranya, headed by Sutta Goswami, is placed in this inquiry. And then there is also the original speaker, Sukadev Goswami, speaking directly to Parikshit Maharaj. So do not get confused on this. There is concurrently this speaking an audience between Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, and between the sages of Naimisaranya and Sonak Goswami. So what does Parikshit stand for? This is very important. In later verses, we'll see that Parikshit stands for examiner. So Parikshit means one who examines. And there's a very important significance to this. Why is he examining? He is examining because at the time he was in the womb and the Brahmastra weapon was released, the Lord entered and he could see the Lord within the womb was only a thumb, was the size of a thumb. But then the Lord protected him. And so when he came out of the womb, Parikshit used to try and look for that personality. So he used to look to see if he can find that personality. So that is the significance of the name Parikshit. Means one who stands, who is examining every person. That's what it stands for. Now, why is it that they, like it is said in the purport, that the sages were interested in coming back to this topic? So we should understand what is the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Srimad Bhagavatam is the history of the activities of the Lord. And the activities of the Lord are performed in relationship with the devotees of the Lord. So that's a very important aspect of Srila Prabhupada comments in his purports. That the Lord has the activities with the devotees. And Parikshit Maharaj is one of the great devotees. In later chapters, Srila Prabhupada actually states that there are two basic reasons why the Lord personally came to save Parikshit Maharaj. So the two basic reasons are that he was spotless due to his being a pure devotee of the Lord. So the Lord came because he was a pure devotee of the Lord. And the second reason the Lord came was because he was the only surviving male descendant of Puru, the pious forefather of the virtuous king Yudhishthira. So Maharaj Parikshit was the grandchild of Maharaj Yudhishthira. And during the war of Mahabharata, his father Ashwatthama and all the 5 sons of Draupadi were killed. So the only surviving heir was Parikshit. And so the Lord gave protection because he was the only heir. But we have to understand why the Lord gave protection. What was the significance? Because the Lord wants, Srila Prabhupada states, because the Lord wants to continue the line of pious kings to rule over the earth as his representatives for the actual progress of a peaceful and prosperous life. So that is why the sages wanted to know about this activity, the birth. And as we know from this, we're going to start speaking about several things, including how there is the 18th chapter, culminating the 18th chapter, where it is now discussed about the cursing of Parikshit by the Brahmana. So they wanted to hear this because devotees want to know about such confidential matters. Devotees want to know what is happening in the realm of devotee world. And so this is a very important thing, because the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavata bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam sajamanyam. Whenever and wherever there is a decline of religion, the Lord comes himself. Pritranaya sadhunam vinasaya dushkratam dharma samstar panaya sambhavami yuge yuge. To do what? To re-establish the principles of religion. So in Maharaj Parikshit, you have the ideal king. And Srila Prabhupada continues to state in the purports that it is through ideal kings like this that the Lord manifests. So this is very important, that we understand that he was a Rajashri. In the ancient times, their rulers were Rajashris, like Maharaj Janak, Maharaj Ajamil, Maharaj Parikshit, Maharaj Yudhishthir. Why? Why were they Rajashri? Because they were taking the heed and advice of qualified Brahmanas. So, being Rajashri, they were able to do what? Srila Prabhupada says, he was a Rajashri, and that was exemplified by his protecting even innocent animals in his kingdom. And there is the example of how Maharaj Parikshit encountered Kali. He actually encountered Kali when he was hitting the legs of mother cow. And at that when he saw that, he made a very bold statement. What did he say? Whoever causes offenseless living beings to suffer must fear me anywhere and everywhere. That's a very bold statement. Now, this is not hot air like what is blown by people today. Because what is the next translations of the verses? The next translations of the verses is that when he picked up his sword, the personified Kali was trembling. He was trembling, and he had actually taken the form of a Kshatriya. And he changed that form, and he was trembling. Not only trembling, but what was he? He even paid obeisances. He actually came to the protection. So that shows that by the power of Parikshit Maharaj, his qualification was that he was a pure devotee of the Lord, he was even able to get Kali to understand that this is Yamaraj. Actually, it is stated in translations and purports by Srila Prabhupada that Kali saw him as personified Yamaraj. So it's not blowing hot air. This is serious business. Even Kali realized the power of Maharaj Parikshit. And this is the rulers, the Rajarishis that we were used to having. That even innocent animals were protected. And when they gave a statement, their statement carried weight. And this is a very important thing, because what do we learn from the life of Srila Prabhupada, from the life of Parikshit Maharaj as devotees? First, he was protected by the Lord. Now we know in the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says very clearly, to Kaunteya pratijani name bhakta pranasyanti. to Arjun that declare to the world that my devotee never perishes. Now you can see a very classic example here. The Lord comes himself. Actually, we will read that the womb was destroyed by the Ashwatthama, by Ashwatthama's weapon, Brahmastra. However, the Lord, as we know, can give life. So the Lord personally protected him. But again, he led an ideal life as a king. And we can see that by his example of even protecting innocent animals. And then the third, which is a very important factor, is how did he approach death? Now, he was able to counteract the curse that was given to him by Shringi. The Brahman boy's name was Shringi. He was able to counteract that. However, as we heard from Srila Prabhupada's lecture on Sunday, Srila Prabhupada said that the opportunity to present Bhagavatam, to speak Bhagavatam, happened because of Parikshit Maharaj accepting. So we can see that although he was so powerful to counteract, he accepted this and he showed us by example how to leave the body. So not only did he have a blessed birth, not did he only live an ideal life, but he also showed us how to live our body. That is why the rishis are inquiring to know about these subject matters. Because they benefit us, they benefit humanity. Because the Brahmanas and the saints do not want to know anything, as we will read later. They do not want to know anything that is not related to Krishna. But they are very interested in learning these subject matters because it will make us better persons. And so, although, like I said, that Maharaj, Parikshit was able to counteract Shringi's curse, he did not. And even Shringi's own father, Samika Rishi, condemned his son's act. But Srila Prabhupada gives us a very important information on this. He says that this cursing process actually was the beginning of the degradation of the Brahmin class. So today's Brahmins, we know the so-called Brahmins, the degradation started with this. Because Kali Yuga is now coming. And what was Kali Yuga's first, what we say, action? His first action was to hit the final leg that mother cow is standing on, which represents truthfulness. So the first thing Kali did was to hit. And there's the degradation of Brahminical culture. Then, with no Raja Rishi, what happens? Srila Prabhupada says, when we do not have, I will read those purports and texts, what Srila Prabhupada comments, and when we do not have saintly kings like Raja Rishis ruling, then the degradation of society starts. So, Srila Prabhupada even says, by the influence of Kali, the king was cursed and thus ended a chapter of happy history. So the happy history was also taken away. And as we know, why are Raja Rishis so important? In Bhagavad Gita, there is also the shloka, Evam parampara praptam imam rajaso vidusakalena mata yoga nashta parantapa. That this science, Evam parampara, this science was passed through the process of discipline, was passed through, and great rishis accepted it that way. And Srila Prabhupada states that the subjects are never happy in the current condition that we are in the present society, because they are electing leaders who are not having this qualification. They are electing leaders purely based on the overly advertised form of democracy. These are the exact words of Srila Prabhupada. That they are electing leaders today based on the overly advertised form of democracy, not on the form of qualification. So, I will like to read, because there is so much nectar instead of speaking, I would like to read a few verses from verse number 42, which is in chapter 18. Same canto, Parikshit cursed by a Brahmana boy. In 42, the translation is, the father heard from his son that the king had been cursed. And that is who? I just gave the name of Shringi's dad. What was the name of Shringi's dad? So, yes. That the king had been cursed, although he should never have been condemned, for he was the best amongst all human beings. The rishi did not congratulate his son, but on the contrary began to repent, saying, alas, what a great sinful act was performed by my son. He was awarded heavy punishment for an insignificant offense. Srila Prabhupada comments in the purport, the king is the best of all human beings. He is the representative of God, and he is never to be condemned for any of his actions. In other words, the king can do no wrong. The king may consider hanging of a culprit son of a Brahman, but he does not become sinful for killing a Brahmana. Even if there is something wrong with the king, he is never to be condemned. A medical practitioner may kill a patient by mistaken treatment, but such a killer is never condemned to death. So what to speak of a good and pious king like Maharaj Parikshit? In the Vedic way of life, the king is trained to become a Rajashri or a great saint. Although he is ruling as king, it is the king only by whose good government the citizens can live peacefully and without any fear. And this was exemplified by his example of trying to protect an innocent animal also. So the Rajashris will respect them as if they were the Lord. The Rajashris will manage their kingdom so nicely and piously that their subjects will respect them as if they were the Lord. So they are the representation of Dharma. Why was Mahabharata war held? To reinstate Maharaj Yudhishthir. Why? Because was there any personal? Because there was no personal. It was basically because he was representing Dharma. He was personified Dharma. So, that is the instruction of the Vedas. The king is called Narendra, or the best amongst the human beings. How then could a king like Maharaj Parikshit be condemned by an inexperienced, puffed up son of a Brahmana, even though he had attained the powers of a qualified Brahmana? Since Samika Rishi was an experienced good Brahmana, he did not approve of the actions of his condemned son. He began to lament for all that his son had done. The king was beyond the jurisdiction of curses as a general rule, and what to speak of a good king like Maharaj Parikshit. The offense of the king was most insignificant, and his being condemned to death was certainly a very great sin for Shringi. Therefore, Rishi Samika regretted the whole incident. In text 43, the next text, oh my boy, let me make sure it's the next one. Oh my boy, your intelligence is immature, and therefore you have no knowledge that the king, who is the best amongst human beings, is as good as the personality of Godhead. He is never to be placed on an equal footing with common man. The citizens of the state live in prosperity, being protected by his unsurpassable prowess. My dear boy, the Lord who carries the wheel of a chariot is represented by the monarchical regime. And when this regime is abolished, the whole world becomes filled with thieves, who then at once vanquish the unprotected subjects like scattered lamps. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, monarchical regime represents the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. The king is said to be the representative of the absolute personality of Godhead because he is trained to acquire the qualities of God to protect the living beings. The battle of Kurukshetra was planned by the Lord to establish the real representative of the Lord, Maharaj Yudhishthir, an ideal king thoroughly trained by culture and devotional service with the martial spirit makes a perfect king. So we can see what are the qualifications. The qualifications are to become a pure devotee. The qualifications are not material qualifications. There is no mention of material qualifications whenever great devotees are spoken about. The qualification is that they are pure devotees. Not academic. Although they are very learned and they are academically also endowed. But the main thing here we have to understand is what was the qualification. Srila Prabhupada says that the ideal king thoroughly trained by culture and devotional service with the martial spirit makes a perfect king. Such a personal monarchy is far better than the so-called democracy of no training and responsibility. The thieves and rogues of modern democracy seek election by misrepresentation of votes, and the successful rogues and thieves devour the mass of population. One trained monarch is far better than hundreds of useless ministerial rogues. And it is hinted herein that by abolition of the monarchical regime like that of Maharaj Parikshit, the mass of people become open to many attacks of the age of Kali. They are never happy in an overly advertised form of democracy. The result of such a kingless administration is described in the following verses. Due to the termination of the monarchical regimes and the plundering of the people's wealth by rogues and thieves, there will be great social misruptions. People will be killed and injured, and animals and women will be stolen. For all these sins we shall be responsible. The Brahmanas. So the word now we is very significant in this verse. They says rightly takes the responsibility of the Brahmanas as a community for killing monarchical government and thus giving an opportunity to the so-called Democrats, who are generally plunderers of the wealth of the state subjects. The so-called Democrats capture the administrative machine without assuming responsibility for the prosperous condition of the citizens. Everyone captures the post for personal gratification, and thus instead of one king, a number of irresponsible kings grow up to tax the citizens. It is foretold herein that in the absence of good monarchical government, everyone will be the cause of disturbance for others by plundering riches, animals, women. At that time, the people in general will fall systematically from the path of a progressive civilization in respect to the qualitative engagements of the castes and the orders of society and the Vedic injunctions. Thus, they will be more attracted to economic development for sense gratification, and as a result, there will be an unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. Okay. Thus, they will be more attracted to economic development for sense gratification, and as a result, there will be an unwanted population on the level of dogs and monkeys. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada comments a very important point. He says, the general mass of population born of illegitimate connections will systematically go astray from the Vedic way of good manners and qualitative engagements to castes and orders of life. And that's what is happening today. In the next verse, which is, the Emperor Parikshit is a pious king. He is highly celebrated and is a first-class devotee of the personality of Godhead. He is saint amongst royalty and he has performed many horse sacrifices. When such a king is tired and fatigued, being stricken with hunger and thirst, he does not at all deserve to be cursed. So, this is the reason why he was cursed. I don't want to get into this because I want to read the last two, because this is so important. What Srila Prabhupada is saying, that the Rishi prayed to the all-pervading personality of Godhead to pardon his immature boy who had no intelligence and who committed the great sin of cursing a person who was completely free from all sins, who was subordinate and who deserved to be protected. In the purpose, Srila Prabhupada comments that the reason the Lord made this arrangement was when Samika Rishi prayed to the Lord for forgiveness, he prayed on the behest of his son. And Shringi was still a child. So Srila Prabhupada says because an innocent child is easier to be forgiven, the Lord accepted that prayer as compared to be a mature person. Because it was the Lord's arrangement. That's why Shringi, Samika, Parikshit, all this was the Lord's arrangement to happen. However, this is a very important point, that it was an innocent child. So Srila Prabhupada comments on that. And then Srila Prabhupada says, the devotees of the Lord are so forbearing. Now this is the major thing that we should learn from this example, class of today. The devotees of the Lord are so forbearing that even though they are defamed, cheated, cursed, disturbed, neglected, or even killed, they are never inclined to avenge themselves. Now this is the other quality of Parikshit Maharaj, that although he could counteract this curse, he did not do that. So we can see the qualities of the devotee. So this is what we should actually learn as practicing devotees. And for our congregation and members who are listening on the internet, this is the most important, one of the most important instructions they should follow, which is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Bharata bhumite manusya janma haile jar. Janma sataka kari kare para upkar. Para upkar means the whole world does not know about the message of Krishna. And therefore, it is the greatest welfare activity to carry this message and inform them. And what better way to inform than Gita Yagya? Gita Yagya is around the corner. We have World Enlightenment Day. Why do we call it enlightenment? Raja Vidya Raja Guyam. We are calling it enlightenment because of this knowledge is most wanted. Why does Vaisesika Prabhu say mass book distribution? Doesn't say book distribution. Now uses the word mass book distribution. Why? Because this is the science that is lacking. And so our plea is to all the members listening, that if you have not yet come forward to pledge for Gita, come now. Because we need to spread this name. Hare Krishna. Any questions? Any comments? Yes, Prabhu. You know, Srila Prabhupada, so you're asking why is the boy condemned? Why is Shringi condemned?
Yeah, because
that's an excellent question, Prabhu. It teaches us many things. One thing it teaches us is that when you have power, you should be able to use that power rightly. He had the power, but he was immature. So instead of being controlled, he immediately went and cursed. And if you see from the example of Parikshit, it's the opposite. Although he can actually counter-react it, he's not doing it. So one thing we learn from this is that how we should be responsible when we have power. In fact, in English, there's a saying, with great power comes great responsibility. There's a very important saying in English, with great power comes great responsibility. So he had the power. So that is one thing we learn. Second thing we learn, if you look at our most of our examples, even if you look at Drona's son Ashwatthama, when you give power to people who are not fully qualified, that's also a problem. Because when you know Shantanu, who was the father of Bhishma, Devrat at that time was asked, when he gave the boon to Bhishma that you will die only at the time, we know that Bhishma was a controlled personality. He's one of the Mahajans. But when the same notion was used by Ashwatthama to ask his father Drona, Drona told him that I am not Shantanu and you're not Bhishma. So that means the example of perfect student, perfect disciple. So we also learn the example of that if you give power to people who are not at that stage, it actually backfires. And that also happens in the material world. So there is many examples. And then obviously what Srila Prabhupada said. And Swavas Prabhu can add.
Yeah, I think he was also thinking, how is it the will of the Lord? How do you see this as being the will of the Lord? And so The answer to that would be that if it wasn't the will of the Lord, then we wouldn't hear the Srimad Bhagavatam.
Exactly.
We wouldn't be having a Bhagavatam class here. So it was the will of the Lord so that we could have the Srimad Bhagavatam and to be able to become Krishna conscious.
Yes. And that's what Srila Prabhupada said on Sunday in his lecture. Does that answer your question, Prabhu? No, but you see, the Lord Prabhupada says that he was forgiven through the plea of the prayer of his father. But that is, how you see it. But in the purport, it's very clearly stated that he was forgiven.
In regards to punishment, Srila Prabhupada one time said also in class, when a child was making a lot of noise, he said, children, women, brahmanas should not be punished. He says, but do not take advantage. So the warning is still there. Like you said, the power is that it's being misused. Sometimes should not be misused.
Thank you. Any more comments? Questions? Srimad Bhagavatam class ki